We were on vacation for a couple of weeks and my freeze dryer has sat unused for over a month. Because of that, before I use it, I want to ensure that it will run smoothly, properly, wonderfully. And so I'm going to change my oil before I put anything into my machine. We had such an amazing time on our RV trip. We went from Arizona all the way up to Anchorage, Alaska in a new, very old used RV. And it was amazing. I will link the video I have of our footage from our trip in the video description below. I show all the highlights and fun parts of the trip, but what you didn't see were some of the mishaps and things that didn't go exactly to plan. I'm going to let you know what those were after I get my oil changed on my freeze dryer. Just so you know, the trip wasn't all rainbows and butterflies, but it was great. The oil in your freeze dryer needs to be clean and fresh in order for it to function properly to get you the best results on your freeze-dried food.
Hey Brooke, how do you know when you need to change your oil?
That's a great question. There are two ways to know when it is time to change your oil in your freeze dryer. There's one easy way and the other way not quite so easy. The first way to know that it is time to change your oil is your machine will tell you, which is so nice. Your LCD screen up here, when it is turned on, every 20 batches in your freeze dryer, you'll get a pop-up on your window saying that it is time to change your oil. Harvest Right suggests that at minimum, you change your oil every 20 uses of your freeze dryer. So that's one easy way to know is your machine will tell you, or you can keep track of about every 20 times you're going to change the oil. The other way to figure out if you need to change your oil is to look in your oil window. I noticed in the last freeze dryer run that I did, I think I was running those peanut butter bar candies. My oil was looking very cloudy in this window. And as I was running, I was like, shoot, I should have changed my oil before this. After being out of town for a few weeks, I don't know if that cloudiness has just settled or what, because it doesn't look as bad. But since this has sat here for over a month, I want to give it a nice new batch of oil just so that I am good to go when I start freeze drying again, which is going to be this weekend. I'm testing out a microphone, so if the sound is funny, I am sorry, I will trash the microphone and get a better one. But we're going to see how this works for today's video and adjust from there. So bear with me. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's sounding good or bad.
So do you have to buy new oil every time you have to do an oil change on your freeze dryer? That sounds like that would be pricey.
No, you do not have to buy new oil every time you change it. When you purchase your freeze dryer, Harvest Right sends you an oil pitcher, which will filter your oil and clean it for you, and you can reuse it. They also send you fresh oil to get started with. So I am almost out of oil in this bottle, but this is still a full bottle that I have. But I haven't even had to open it yet because I have just been exclusively filtering my oil and then putting it in my machine, and it has been working out great. One thing to be aware of is that these do have removable filters inside of them that need to be changed periodically. So don't forget to change your filter in your pitcher. But besides that, it works great for cleaning your oil and you can put it back in your machine. The other thing to be aware of is that it takes a long time for the oil to filter in here. I think 5 to 6 hours or so. At least that's been my experience. So if you don't have extra oil and you're just taking oil out of your machine, filtering it and re-adding it, you're not going to be freeze drying until 6 hours later or so. So just be aware of that. I always keep a batch filtered here, and then so I can rotate it fast. I can pour out my oil and then add this oil there and switch it around, and it's the lovely oil circle of life.
Okay, I'm starting to get it, but it sounds a little complicated. Could you just show me how to do it? So now you can see the oil here. It is nice and clear, there's no bubbles, there's no clouding, your oil is good to go. You want it between the min and max range here. So I just, towards the end, once I see this line starting to move up, I just pour the oil very slowly so that it doesn't like overfill. And then if it's pretty low, I'll just add a little bit more. So you're at least in that range. I also take this time to check my connections, like my hose connections here. I make sure they're nice and tight. You want the oil cap nice and tight, that kind of stuff, just to make sure there's no leaks or anything like that. So it really is that simple. It takes like 5 minutes at the most. Don't be afraid of the oil pump. A lot of people get caught up on, oh, I want a freeze dryer, but changing oil on it sounds really hard and inconvenient. But it's really not. That just took me 5 minutes. And that included like recording time and stuff like that. So you could probably really do it in like 3 minutes if you're nice and quick. They do sell a vacuum pump that is oil free, but it is like $1,500 or so more expensive than the Premier oil pump that freeze dryers come with. So for me personally, it wasn't worth spending an extra $1,500 since the machine in and of itself is already expensive. The oil is fine, but there are some people who don't want to hassle with it, and that's totally cool. If you got the extra money, go for the oil-free pump. It's just personal preference, but it's really not hard if you're worried about it being hard. Now that I've got that little chore checked off my to-do list, I can tell you about the 3 kind of big hiccups that we had in the RV. Now this RV is almost 20 years old, and the first time that we've ever like driven it, because we just bought it used from somebody. So we were kind of going into this trip blindly. But one of the hiccups we had was on our second day, the generator stopped working. So we did not have an inverter on this RV, so our air conditioning and electronics in the back of the camper would not work while we were driving. We would only have air conditioning from the front main engine of the RV. And so we were in Utah in Arches National Park when the generator went out. And that's how we were keeping the back of the RV cool, because it was still very hot in the southern states here. But we took some time to study the 20-year-old user manuals on the generator, and we're able to figure out some of the error codes that it was giving off. It pretty much told us it's either a spark plug or a fuel problem. Luckily, my husband is very handy. We drove for a few more hours, got ourselves to a AutoZone, I think was where he went, bought a new spark plug in the parking lot, changed the spark plug of the generator, and it worked, which was such a blessing, because if we did not have that generator, we would have had major problems on this camping trip, because we used it at some of the campgrounds we were at and to be able to power our TV and chargers and things like that while we were driving. So thank you, Nate. He is very handy and mechanically inclined, which was such a blessing to have his skills to be able to fix that, because if it was me, I would have been stranded. Another thing we encountered in northern Arizona was a crazy huge dust storm, lightning, thunderstorm. We were just driving in the middle of the desert, and all of a sudden this huge wall of sand just comes across. I mean, the RV was shaking from all the wind, and sand was just blowing across the road like crazy. It was funny, it looked like how snow blows across the road in our snowstorms in Alaska, but it was sand. So we pulled over into a gas station because it just did not seem safe to be driving at the time. My chair just cracked and like scared me just now, but it didn't seem safe to be driving. So we pulled over, stopped, got some gas, but when we tried to open the door, a huge amount of dust was just flying in the RV. So we had to hurry and shut the door. We turned the RV around so we could open the door properly without in the opposite direction of the wind. It was just crazy. But luckily the bad part of the storm lasted about 20 minutes. We weren't stranded for very long, but those things you just can't predict, and you got to deal with it. The only other real hiccup that I can think of that happened to us was just how sketchy the roads were up in like Destruction Bay, which is like in the Yukon, I think. I might have my geography all wrong. Destruction Bay to Tok, and actually all the way to like Glen Allen in Alaska. There were so many frost heaves and areas where the road was being repaired. Coming in an RV, even going super slow, it rattled and shook the thing like crazy. It sounded like it was falling apart. We were hauling 2 bikes on a hitch behind our RV. We would tell the kids to look out the window and make sure the bikes were still there because we had 2 bike straps bust on the trip. Luckily, no bikes flew off, but when we were parked, we noticed some of the straps were ripped apart and could have fallen off, but luckily they didn't. So that road was just scary. We got 2 chips in our windshield from rocks hitting it. We would be driving, hit those bumps, and you would just hear screws falling out of the ceiling. I don't know what those screws were to, but we would just find screws on the floor from all the rattling. The old RV just could not handle it. But overall, it drove really well. We got home in one piece. The RV is still alive and good to go. We plan on going camping in it lots this summer. We are super excited about that. And now we know our RV really, really well. The trip was definitely the trip of a lifetime though. So if you haven't seen that video of our RV trip, check out the video description to find it. Also, Harvest Right, their current promotion right now with freeze dryers is $300 off freeze dryers, and it comes with that Premier oil pump that I have, which works great. So if you're in the market for a freeze dryer, check out my link below in the video description. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments, and I will catch you all on the next video. Bye.